Hi, I'm Maya the Science Kid. I just got my COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine just got approved for kids in America ages 5 to 11. And I just got mine. Today I'm going to show you how the COVID vaccine works with this board that me and my friends made with the help of my uncle. And we did a little bit of research so that we can make this board, and now I'm going to show you what the COVID vaccine does inside of your body. Everything in your body is made up of cells. From your head to your toes, to your arms, to your feet, everything is made up of cells. The cells that are in your body right now are eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells are in animals, plants, and fungi. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus, which holds the DNA. The DNA is like a strand of information, and it is like a ladder that's twisted, but it holds information. The DNA is like instructions for printing. And the printer in your house, the cell is like a house. The printer in your house is the ribosome. The ribosome gets the instructions from the DNA and copies it. And copies it again. After a couple times, it deletes the information, the instructions. And then the nucleus sends out another instruction for the ribosome to copy. Usually you would plug in your printer for it to get electricity. But in this instance, the mitochondria deliver energy to the ribosome. The mitochondria is like a package, and inside of it there is energy. The ribosome can open the package, take out the energy, and use it to copy the instructions. Then the mitochondria can go and get refilled. On the exterior, you have the wall, just like the wall in your house, and then you have some windows. These windows are receptors. Receptors have keyholes that only certain things can get to. And that's how you can become infected with a virus, because the virus will attach to the keyhole. The other cell is a bacteria cell, and it is called a prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cell. It has a wall, it has mitochondria, ribosome, and all the windows. But one thing it doesn't have is a nucleus. But it still has the DNA. The DNA just floats around. It's like cell soup. But it wouldn't be very tasty. I mean, bacteria soup. So, it is also smaller than the eukaryotic cell. The next particle we have is the coronavirus. Viruses in general. But there's this one family that we are particularly interested in called the coronavirus family. The coronaviruses are a family of viruses, and there are 5 in the family. It includes the common cold, SARS-CoV-1, and SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2 is more commonly known as COVID-19. SARS-CoV-1 was a version of COVID that was also started in China, just like SARS-CoV-2. But SARS-CoV-1 is different. It has evolved into SARS-CoV-2 and And now we have SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID-19. I want to ask you a question. Are viruses good or bad? Well, the answer is they are fantastic. Because without viruses, bacteria, all the bad bacteria, would take over the world. And nothing would be able to live except the bacteria. Viruses keep the bacteria population in check at the right amount. It just happens that some viruses here and there, some, very few, happen to be bad and happen to infect humans. Coronaviruses are one of those. The coronavirus has a wall, and inside of it has RNA, which is like DNA, which is the ladder, but it is half of a ladder that's twisted. That's how it stores its information, the virus's information. Then you have a spike. The spike is 3 cones, all attached, to make it look like one big cone. At the tip of the spike, you have this area that has its own name, RBD. RBD stands for receptor binding domain. Receptor means receiver, catcher. Binding means attaching, attacher. And domain means area. The receptor binding domain is the area that attaches to the receptor. It's the domain that attaches to the receptor. The domain that binds to the receptor, which is how it gets its name, RBD. Now I want to talk to you about how COVID gets inside of your body. So the RBD goes onto the ACE2 receptor, a special kind of receptor on your lungs. The cells in your lungs are called the epithelial cells. That's why you can only get COVID through your lungs, not any other way. You cannot get COVID by rubbing COVID into your hand. That's not how it works. You have to breathe some COVID in, then you'll get COVID if it goes into your lungs. After the virus attaches, then coming out of the spike, it sends the RNA that's inside of it. The RNA goes to the ribosome, and the ribosome doesn't know that it's supposed to not be copied, so ribosome isn't very smart. So it doesn't really know what it copies. Just it copies. So it copies the RNA, and now you're infected. Because after it gets copied, the ribosome doesn't destroy that RNA. Because there's only a specific kind of RNA that will get destroyed. The mRNA, which is what the nucleus naturally sends out. So, once the COVID gets in your body, COVID doesn't actually harm you. You harm yourself because COVID sort of tricks you. Not really, but it makes you overreact. So I want to tell you a story. working in my room. I just came home from school, and I'm going in there to sit down in my backpack. And I go in, and there is a ginormous spider. And I scream. And I scream so loud that my mom comes running in, and she says, "What's going on?" And she doesn't even wait for me to respond. She just knows that there's a spider, and I have to kill the spider. So she uses fire to kill the spider, and pretty much burns down the whole room. In my story, the little girl, me, or you, the little girl, was a kind of white blood cell that pretty much just screams to alert other white blood cells that gobble the virus, the foreign object. So the kind of white blood cell that I am is a T cell. I look at it and I say, it's a foreign object. I must scream. Okay. The scream is cytokine, a chemical. So that was a chemical scream. I have so much scream that the other white blood cells, my mom, those white blood cells eat and they attack. Those are the attacking blood cells. They think that something is so bad that they have to attack pretty much everything, and they attack your own cells. And that's how you get infected by COVID. Your normal reaction would to be just destroy the virus, and then your body chews it up. The mom would chew it up and go over there and say, "Here you go." The mom is an antigen presenting cell. It presents the chewed up virus, and then the B cell comes along and says, "Oh, let me take that from you. I'll go make an antibody for it." An antibody is like a card. And on the card, it's like an ID. It has information. Just about the virus that it was attacking. So like, it was this color, it looked like this, it had this on it with red spots and polka dots. Or something like that. So to cure you from COVID, or to prevent COVID, more like prevent COVID, we had to create a vaccine or an antiviral. An antiviral is like a medicine that you take daily or weekly or something like that, that helps COVID not infect you, helps you recognize COVID, helps you already have that ID for COVID. But they had to test all the antivirals and vaccines we already have. Maybe one of those works. Well, we've made a lot of vaccines, and there aren't that many people who would want to volunteer for those vaccines. So they had to use mice. Problem is, mice don't have an ACE2 receptor. Only humans have an ACE2 receptor. So they had to make a mouse called a humanized mouse that has an ACE2 receptor in its lung. So they tested them and none of them worked. So they had to make a new vaccine. The most common vaccine, one that we have used for common colds, flu shots, and things like that, has been created for COVID. It is basically just the weakened COVID, weakened SARS-CoV-2. And people in China figured out a way how to do that, and they created this vaccine, the Sinovac vaccine. This one was created in China. This one is the mRNA vaccine. The mRNA vaccine is the one that has been approved for kids that I got, and it has the instructions for making the spike, the whole spike. The instructions for making the spike. And once it gets in your body, you make the spike, and then your B cells can come and make an antibody for it. And then if even the whole COVID comes back, it will remember that one spike. So the thing about all of these is that if one part changes, it most likely will still work because it will still remember one part. So this one is the mRNA vaccine, and it has the instructions for making the spike. This one is the adeno 26 vaccine, but it can be made with adeno 5 or anything that doesn't harm humans. Adeno 26 is a vaccine, is a virus that doesn't harm humans, and so is adeno 5, which has also been used to make this vaccine. What they do is they put half COVID spikes on one half and adeno 26 spikes on the other half. And there's no RNA inside. So then your body will make the antibodies, and it will remember that one COVID spike. So even if it comes back the whole COVID, it will remember that one spike. Now, a question people ask often is, I want to get the best one. Which one should I get? Well, they're all good. They all serve their purpose. And their purpose is so that the cytokine storm doesn't happen. Their purpose is so that all that happens is a little bit of cytokine clouds. Another question people often ask is, I got the vaccine, but I still got COVID. I thought the vaccine was supposed to prevent COVID. Well, it doesn't prevent COVID, it prevents the cytokine storm from happening. Now that you know about vaccines, make sure to get your own, because if we all get our vaccines, masks won't be needed anymore, and we won't have to wear masks to go grocery shopping or anything like that. Also, it doesn't hurt very much. It's just a little shot. Today we learned about cells, viruses, how the viruses get into your body, what happens when the viruses get into your body, how the vaccine works, the different kinds of vaccines, and how they have tested the vaccine. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time on a My the Science Kid video. Do.